everybody. So we are so excited to be here to talk about the best of independent films 2018. And I'm really excited to have a new co-host that I haven't had on the podcast yet. My friend, fellow blogger Orla Smith is here all the way from London. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is such a treat. Why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little about yourself and your blog and whatever else you do.
Well, my name is Orla Smith, and we met each other through Twitter, I think. Yeah. And I have, right now I am the associate editor at a site called Seventh Row. So check that out if you want to see most of my stuff, because that's where most of it goes. But yeah, when we first started talking, I just had a blog, and I was just writing my own stuff, and done a lot in the past year. I've joined Seventh Row. I write for BRWC. I do several various things, but generally it's all film related. So yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
That's really awesome. I knew you had gotten some published, but I didn't realize it was a regular thing that you're doing. So that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really cool. And you are in London, correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, yes, around London, just outside London. Mm-hmm. Basically, for people who don't live in England, to simplify it, I live in London.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. Well, very, very cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our top 5 independent films to have come out in 2018. We just kind of left it up to us to decide what independent meant. It can
very vague.
It can be a little vague, yeah. Were there any honorable mentions that you wanted to, that didn't make your top 5 that you wanted to talk about, or?
Well, we decided not to go with any overlap, so there's a couple on your list that would be on mine. Mostly like honorable mentions would be things that I decided not to classify as independent films, so that I could sort of bring to light other films that wouldn't be as talked about. So like my favorite film of the year is You Were Never Really Here, which I guess is an independent film, but it's also sort of an art house thing that's getting more attention. It feels of a different type. I really love On Chesil Beach.
I haven't seen that yet. I want to see
it's really good. I've seen it 3 times now, and it just gets better, and it's just really, really like an interesting, clever film. And there's several films that came out like in England this year that were out in America and other places last year. So we have things like, I don't know, Columbus, which I really liked. We had Lady Bird this year. That's an independent film. But yeah, no, I think the 5 I've gone with are definitely independent and definitely very good. So
cool. Yeah,
they are.
Great. A couple honorable mentions that I will mention is a documentary called Minding the Gap, which I really liked. It's I don't know how they had such foresight to this guy. He just started from when they were pretty young, filming and interviewing his friends. And there's these 3 skateboarders in like, I think it's like in Milwaukee or someplace like that. I can't remember, but anyway, and one of them is I think Korean American, one of them is African American, and one is Caucasian, and they all have varying sort of experiences with domestic violence in their home. So that kind of becomes also sort of a thread, and who's able to sort of stop that, who's able to, and they all have different, I don't know, it was really well done and moving, and but also felt pretty real and honest. So this one I definitely would recommend checking out. And I also liked a really weird documentary called Genesis 2.0, and it's half of the movie is about these ivory tusk people that are like looking for they're looking for ivory in Siberia from woolly mammoths, and then the other half is about these cloning factories that are starting up in China, and it was terrifying. I was just like, oh my gosh. To me, that whole idea of, and because like these Chinese people are, these factories are trying, or whatever you call them, our labs, I guess, are trying to get the blood and the other DNA from the woolly mammoth tusks to somehow end up cloning and bringing back the woolly mammoth to life. And that was just like terrifying to me. I was like, oh my gosh, we're all gonna die. And they're already like bringing back people's dogs and stuff, but I don't know. It was just, it was a little boring in spots, I'm not gonna lie, but just the whole like concept was just terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So I
Documentaries are
recommend
good at terrifying you.
yeah, it so I recommend checking it out. Just I don't know. It was crazy. Let's talk about I'll give my number 5 and then you can give yours. So my number 5 is a film called 8th Grade, and in fairness, this doesn't come out in the States until July. So this is it's just one that I saw at Sundance, but I knew you had seen it, so I thought it was fair game.
It doesn't even have a distributor here, so we don't know when it's going to be coming out.
Yeah. Well, so this is directed by Bo Burnham. I had never heard of him before I saw this. Evidently, he is a popular comedian, I guess.
Yeah.
I wasn't. I still haven't really seen any of his, but it's about this girl played by Elsie Fisher that is in the 8th grade, finishing up the 8th grade, obviously, and she is super insecure. And I guess part of the reason why I related to it so much is that she's a YouTuber and she makes all these videos about how to be confident and how to be, and and yet she is super unconfident and super insecure. And I thought that it was really emotionally true. And a lot of times these coming of age movies, even, I don't know, even ones I respect and admire, they don't really connect with me because I feel like they're too caustic and too mean. Like I know that teenagers can be a handful, but I don't know, I just don't relate to that, like that kind of being mean as a teen. Like, yeah, you're being contrary, but I don't know, they just take it a lot of times a step too far. Like for me, I respected what Edge of 17 did, but I just don't connect with that kind of coming of age story. I connect with more the stories of something like Sing Street or something like that's more sort of positive. And this, I thought that it did a really good job of sort of straddling that in between. Like she definitely had her contrarian things, but then there were also these really sweet, really heartfelt moments where you're really rooting for her. And I felt like it was very true to our time and the way that we use the internet and the way that we talk about social media, all that stuff felt true. Whereas like there was a movie called The Duff a few years ago where it was it was perfectly fine, but like the thing about it is that in this one scene in The Duff, this girl gets this super embarrassing video plastered all on YouTube and everyone in the school knows. And the attitude of the movie was like, just own it, just deal with it. Like it was just really weird to me, and it didn't feel like authentic. Like I don't think I'm that out of touch with teenagers that like I just didn't feel authentic, that it would just be like, no big deal, who cares, you've just been publicly humiliated. And this felt more authentic to the way that we use social media and YouTube and everything. So I really liked it. I thought it was very good.
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan of Bo Burnham before I watched it. I catched up with some of his stand-up last year, and he's really interesting because he's very young, and he's doing this kind of stand-up that's not like anything I've seen. So some of his specials are on Netflix, and it's less just standard, talking to a crowd, and it's something quite creative and cinematic. So it makes sense that he would make a film because he does songs as part of his stand-up, And sometimes, like when I hear that a comedian does songs, it makes me groan, and like I know they're going to be kind of embarrassing. But his are completely different. They're so funny, and he incorporates it with standard stand up, and he uses like light and sound in really creative ways, and he's almost sort of deconstructing what we think of a stand up set. So he's already thinking almost like a filmmaker, and this is his first film he's like directed. But it's really funny as you'd expect from a comedian.
Mm.
But it's also really well made as well. Like I think he uses almost like he depicts like middle school using sort of horror filmmaking techniques. So
Yeah.
there'll be like slow zooms and synth music that you might find in like a film like It Follows. And but it's like to show like a girl going to like a pool party at like the cool kid's house, and she's really scared, and he's using the same technique, and he's making like these really small experiences really huge because they feel really huge to her, and they're a huge source of anxiety. And I mean, she's so awkward, but like in a very relatable way. And I think this film like is going to be, it's going to really connect with people, and I think it's quite marketable. So
Mm.
hopefully, when it comes out, people are actually going to see it, because I think that it is really, it's like almost painfully relatable in a way that we rarely see, because it's in such a detailed way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I really loved it. I loved her relationship with her dad in it as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
It was so sweet. And like Josh Hamilton is really good in it, and he gives a monologue in the film that had everyone in the audience crying when they watched it. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I really love this film as well. I saw it about a week or two ago, and I already really, really want to see it again,
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
is very, yeah.
Yeah, you make a really good point about the sort of the horror sort of techniques. Like I hadn't really thought about that, but I can totally see what you're saying. And she got he got a debut talent in this Elsie. At Sundance, she was there and she talked about it, and it was really funny because she said that she didn't get the lead part in her high school play.
Yeah.
She got
I
this,
heard about that, yeah.
which was funny, and she was just delightful. And I don't know, I just felt like they did such a good job of balancing tone. Like
Mm,
that's so hard in any movie to do, but especially uh I don't know, something like this. Like there were so many spots where I was like, oh no, they're gonna go. Oh no, they didn't.
yeah.
And that would have like made it too dark or made it too silly. Like I feel like they just nailed it
Mm,
in that regard. So I do hope people see it. It probably will be rated R, but I feel like it's pretty accurate to the way like to
yeah,
the way that
yeah.
you
It
know.
is weird that, yeah, people that age might not be able to see it, even though it is like really, really accurately depicting. I also think it's interesting that Bo Burnham is someone who owes his career to like YouTube. And I mean, he was a YouTuber originally before he was a
Yeah,
comedian. That's how
yeah,
he got famous. And he's making a film sort of about the dangers of the internet, but it's not in a really preachy way that's
yeah.
like you shouldn't use the internet, because he, like I said, he owes his career to the internet. So it's sort of the first film that we have that is about sort of the ups and downs of the internet by someone who's really like from that world, not just
Mhm.
looking at it from out the outside.
Yeah, because nothing that she's doing is really like bad or really even hurting her. It's just I don't know, like she just needs to not be in a spot where she's giving advice to other people. She just needs to be working on herself. Like it's not the right time for her to be doing
Yeah.
that is more the problem. And I don't know. She just needs to be a kid. I think that's the
Mm.
she needs to be listening to other people's advice, not giving out advice. And so yeah, it's really good. I think that people will really like it if they give it a shot. So what do you have as your number five?
Well, this is sort of number five because of what it is, rather than number five because of quality.
Right.
But it's The Burden, which is a short film. And because it's a short film, I've just stuck it at the end. But
Mhm.
I mean, I don't really know how to sort of think about it in comparison to other films, not just because it's a short film, but because it's so weird and different.
Yeah.
And I don't really know exactly how to describe it. Um, but I mean, this also played at Sundance London as part of the shorts program, but I'm not exactly sure where you can see it. It will probably come online at some point this year, but it's this, I think, Swedish film, about 20 minutes long. It's animated, it's stop motion animation, it's a musical, all the characters are animals, and they sing in auto tune. So you have, I think, there's fish in a long stay motel, there's tap dancing mice who like work in a diner, there's monkeys who work in a call center, and then something at the end, like I can't remember what animal it is, like in a shopping center. And like I said, they all sing about like their mortality in auto tune in Swedish, while doing like a very elaborate dance moves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very strange. It's nothing like anything I've ever seen before, but somehow it just works. It's very funny, but
Mm-hmm.
also like yeah, I can't, I don't really know how to put into words what the film is doing, but I think it's just like very, very clever and fun and yeah, interesting and good. And yeah, like I said, hopefully people do see it because it's very obscure and weird, but I
Mm-hmm.
promise that you'll get something from it. I don't know what that is.
I was really glad you picked this because first I didn't recognize the name, but then I looked, I was like, oh yeah, because I saw this, and this was definitely the highlight of the animation at Sundance. I didn't like either of the feature films. They're actually at the bottom of my list for what I've seen so far in 2018, just because they both kind of either were like, I figure like the worst thing a movie can do is if I'm like literally physically nauseous, and like, and then second is if it like offends me. Like that's worse to me than, and I'm not easily offended, but anyway, the White Fang movie was just, I thought, exploitative, and I didn't like that. And so those are my worst of the year so far. So I was like, oh man, this is rough. Sundance animation. And in 2017 I was really disappointed in the animation shorts because it felt like everyone was trying to be Don Hertzfeldt. And that's
Yeah,
what you get sometimes when something like that hits, that everyone's trying to be surrealist and everyone's trying to be all, obtuse and whatever. And so it was kind of annoying. And so I went into this kind of with low expectations. And there were three out of I thought were good. And The Burden was my favorite of them all. And it's so funny.
mm.
It really is. I mean, those fish singing about dating is just hilarious. And the song, I like the little song. It's very catchy.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the monkeys in the call center. You got tap dancing mice. It is weird, but in the delightful ways, I think. It was really
The
fun.
choreography is really good on
Yeah.
the like tiny stop motion animals.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. I hope that that gets them noticed and
Mm.
we get to see more from them because I don't know, it was just delightful. I think everybody will enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's very sweet too. I mean, I think they're just I don't know. I don't know what exactly it's trying to say, but
Yeah.
something about finding the joy in day-to-day life, I guess. I think is what it's trying to say.
Yeah. What? Yeah. If you watch it, work it out for yourself, and
Yeah.
if you work out what it's saying, tell us.
Yeah, let us know if you
Yeah.
do. But it's a good one. I'm glad you picked it. All
Yeah.
right. So my number 4 is a another animated film, and it's called Sergeant Stubby, an American Hero. And it's the kind of movie that it's easy to just sort of dismiss it because it's like not from one of the major studios and it's not distributed by G Kids or one of the major independent distributors. I don't know, it's just, and it's about a dog, and usually animated movies about animals can be pretty bad. And But I'm telling you, this movie is really good. They do so many things right. That there were so many spots where it could have gone completely off the rails, but then they make the right choice. Like, for instance, they don't have the dog talk. None of the animals talk. And that would have been so easy to do in an animated film to try to make it like more appealing to kids or whatever, but they don't. It's just a cute little doggy. And I don't know, there were a lot of moments like that. And I thought the animation was pretty darn good for just a little company out of Atlanta. And it tells the true story of this dog in World War I that was actually given uh, the ranking of sergeant, believe it or not. And in he has this bond with this soldier played by Logan Lerman. And I thought it was so good at like showing war enough, but not like being too traumatizing for kids, but being honest about it, while also it's not like a rah 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 America kind of movie, which could have been easy to do. I don't know, it's just it's the kind of movie that I think kids will go, they'll learn a lot, and they'll have questions. And I thought that, like, there's one scene at the end where the armistice has been signed, but it doesn't go into an effect until noon that afternoon. And so they're still fighting literally up until noon. And then that's it. And like the narrator says, I don't know why they went out that morning. I don't know, but there was a price to be paid. And I thought that was like really truthful to just admit to kids, I don't know why they made this terrible choice. We don't know. As opposed to just being sort of I always appreciate that when a movie can be truthful to kids about like, we don't know why they did this. This was bad. And anyway, I really thought it was just so sweet and so cute, but also truthful, and showed enough of the war to be to not be glamorizing it in any way, in my opinion. And everybody I've recommended to has really enjoyed it. So, and everybody has gone into it being like, Sergeant Stubby, and they actually like it. They give it a shot.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard of it. So
yeah, and it's one I can definitely picture being a part of curriculums, and it's cool because it's the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War One. So this could definitely be a useful tool. Pick.
My next pick is a film called Oh Lucy, which again, like, I'm in the UK, and I don't know when or if this is ever going to get released here. I saw it last September at the Rain Dance Film Festival in London, and it came out in March, I think, in the US. So it is out there somewhere for you to see. But it premiered at Cannes last year, and it premiered out of competition, and it's a Japanese film which stars Josh Hartnett as well. Josh Hartnett in Japan. He plays, well, the main character is this woman, I can't remember the actress's name, but she's very, very good. And she's sort of a middle-aged woman who's going through a midlife crisis. She works in an office and she feels kind of purposeless. And she goes to take English classes. I think she was in Tokyo. She goes to take English classes, and the teacher is Josh Hartnett. And that's where it starts off, and that's sort of what I knew of the film before going in. But it's not sort of just like a comedy of these English classes. It goes in other directions. It takes the Josh Hartnett character in different directions. But most of all, it's just a really, again, I don't remember much about the film since I saw it last September, but I think that this is a film that shouldn't go under the radar, because it is, firstly, it's a sort of a comedy about a middle-aged woman that takes her seriously, and it's funny, but it doesn't make fun of her. And she is like, the actress is very, very like compelling in compelling, but also funny and great. And I don't know, It's a very clever film, I think, and mostly just enjoyable, but you'll get something out of it. And yes, I recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually just watched it today. It is available to stream if people are interested on in America, so you can watch it. And I really enjoyed it. It definitely. I feel like it's. I kind of wish it had stayed in Japan. I feel like some of the stuff doesn't quite work as well in this
Yeah, it's
once it
much
gets.
more like sprawling geographically than I expected it. I expected
Yeah.
it to be this kind of very sort of contained independent film, but it is like it crosses the globe.
Yeah. And but I thought that I agree with you about her. I thought that she was great in the lead. She was really sweet and easy to relate to, and someone who is obviously just so in need of like human touch and human contact, and that it was really, I don't know, I felt like it was true to how fast she kind of fell for this guy because she's just so lonely. And I think they did a good job, but not portraying loneliness while not um being patronizing about it. Like the movie isn't patronizing to her, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she was great. And Josh Hartnett, who knew? Right?
Yeah, I didn't expect to see him here.
Yeah. My next pick is a documentary called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And this is about Fred Rogers, who was the host of a program called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And have you ever heard of this show? Do they have it over there at all?
I don't think it's as big of a thing because I've heard of him, but I don't really know anything about it. And I've heard about this film and everyone talking about it as a sort of nostalgic thing. And yeah, I don't have much of a reference point for
Yeah.
it.
I mean, it doesn't reinvent the wheel as far as like a documentary with talking heads talking about a character. I mean, not a character, talking about a person. We've seen a million of those, and it's very similar to like they had a documentary about the Elmo actor, and they had a documentary about the Big Bird actor who and kind of feels somewhat similar to that. But I think that it'll be interesting to see if you do get to see it, what you think, having not having the nostalgic connection with the show like so many of us do, because I still think it's an interesting depiction of what one person that just loves. He's just there to love, and like what a difference that makes in people's lives. And there's some really, really touching moments. One of my favorites is there's a whole segment where PBS is starting to lose, public television is threatened to lose funding. And there's this really kind of curmudgeonly congressman who's overseeing these hearings. And he tells the people, he says, I'm tired of hearing all your scripted speeches. I don't want to hear these speeches anymore. And he's basically just saying like, the funding is not going to happen. Like he's just a grumpy guy. And so Fred Rogers gets up there and he talks about how his what he thinks is the most important thing is you can tell a child that he is matters and that they are special just being the way that they are, and that's something that his program basically can do. And that's that's sort of his mission in life, is to tell children that they are loved. And he says this speech and from his heart, and the curmudgeonly congressman says, well, I think that's great. You got your funding. And he got the funding. It was just like, oh my gosh, it was so exciting. So, and I mean, I think in the days of like Me Too, where it seems like every public figure slash, actor, celebrity, whatever, has this like dark side that we're learning about, and whatever. I feel like they tried to like find things bad about him, but like they really couldn't. And he really seemed to talk the talk and walk the walk of what he did. And I don't know. So I think even people that aren't invested in the show will still be moved by it and will still like it.
My number 3 is The Party, which is an interesting one for the UK release date thing, because usually, as I've been saying, we get things way, way later than everything else. But with this one, it came out last year, last October, and it's only just now come out in the US a couple months ago. But it's a film by Sally Potter, who is a very famous, like well-established director who's been around for decades. Who I hadn't seen any of her films before, so that's kind of a gap in my knowledge. This was the first one, and the first thing that you should know about the film is that it's only 17 minutes long, which is always a plus. So
Yeah.
even if you don't like it, you've wasted basically none of your life.
Right.
That's always like the number one selling point. If a film is under 90 minutes, that's the first thing you tell me. And this is like just over 70. So it's basically just over an hour. And it's in black and white. It has this like amazing ensemble of actors who I love. Like it's led by Kristen Scott Thomas, Cillian Murphy's in it, Timothy Spall, Patricia Clarkson, all these people who are great. And it's set just almost in real time at a dinner party, and it is set against this sort of political backdrop with Kristen Scott Thomas has just been elected as something, and she is hosting a dinner party for all her friends and colleagues to just come together and celebrate that. And things kind of go a bit badly. And I think that the fact that it's set against this political backdrop sort of implies that it's got all these political ideas. And I think that it's not like completely devoid of that. But also, that's not why I like the film at all. Like, I didn't really take much from it in terms of its ideas about politics or anything like that, because I don't think it has a whole lot to say about that. I mean, I've only seen it once, and I might get more from it the second time. I mostly just really enjoyed it as almost firstly like a technical exercise, but technical exercise in comedy. I just found it like really, really funny in this. I mean, a lot of comedies we get nowadays are just, I mean, I don't really respond to them, and I just rely on sort of tired verbal jokes, and I tend to avoid them. But this is sort of almost like, I don't want to say old fashioned, but it's sort of classically sometimes almost slapstick comedy. It really uses the camera. I mean, the way she shoots things is so dynamic. And I mean, one of the funniest things about the film is just like the first 20 minutes, you just keep cutting back to these close-ups of Timothy Spall's face, just sitting on this chair in the middle of his living room, just like with this like utterly drained expression on his face, and just like the close-ups of his face are hilarious. And I just mostly just had like such a great time with it last year, and I do really want to revisit it.
Yeah, so I saw this today as well, and I must admit I didn't really get it. It's really well cast. They all do a great job. I love Kristen Scott Thomas. She's one of my favorites. She's great, but I don't know. I just didn't laugh that much. I felt like I was missing something that, like, I don't know. I just felt like I was supposed to be laughing, but I wasn't laughing.
And I think
And
this has divided people a lot. And I think it's just because it's based so much of like whether you find it funny. I mean, sense of humor is so subjective. Like I said, I don't really respond to a lot of comedies, like American studio comedies, and maybe it's a similar thing with this. Like that's not my sense of humor, and this isn't your sense of humor. So I think it's really subjective.
It is. It's really subjective. I thought the funniest parts for me were with the lesbian and the triplets. I thought that was funny. They're yeah, I don't know, all the sort of jabs, and it's very like dry, and Patricia Clarkson I thought had some funny moments,
Yeah.
some funny jabs. I don't know though. Yeah, but in it, it does look. I can totally see why. But yeah, humor is definitely the most subjective of all the uh, different types of entertainment. My next choice is a movie called Lean on Pete.
Which I've seen.
Yes. So this is directed by Andrew Hay, who I think hasn't made a bad movie. Like he's just
Mm,
so consistent in making
yeah.
tremendous films. And I loved 45 Years. I thought that was just, I don't know. I was just bawling. I just really responded emotionally to it,
Mm,
to her performance and her character. And she reminded me a lot of my grandma, actually, for a lot of reasons. And I just thought it was beautiful movie. And I think that this is beautiful as well. And I mean, devastating, but
mm,
beautiful. I mean, it looks gorgeous. And it's about this, I mean, you know, but it's about this kid named Charlie who, uh,
mm.
various things happen that he ends up running away with this horse that is going to be uh, sold to these bad people. And he, you know, meets all these various people along the way. You really get a sort of a, it's one of those movies that gives you like the feeling of America now
Mm.
in 2018. It feels very authentic. It feels very real. I thought that Charlie Plummer did a great job
Yeah,
as the lead. I mean, I thought he was one of the best things about All the Money in the World. And
definitely. Yeah.
he is great here. Like, he's definitely one of the most talented younger actors that we have working today, in my opinion. And there's a couple scenes in here that are just, I thought were just devastating. And it's one of those movies that I saw it and I liked it, but then it's like stayed in the back of my
Yeah.
head, just like I just keep thinking about it and thinking about little scenes. Like there's a scene where he is going to dine and dash and he gets
Mm.
caught, and the in the end the waitress is just like, just let him go, you know. And I don't know, that whole scene was just like so interesting to me and moving. And I could just picture this waitress who obviously doesn't have like the greatest job in the world, just being like, this person is starving and I'm not going to let him go to jail. Like it reminded me a lot of Hell or High Water, which I really loved. But I don't know, I might even like this better.
Mm.
Which is high praise.
Well, I've seen it twice now,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, I saw it. I mean, the funny thing is, I saw it last October at the London Film Festival, and I was so excited for it because Andrew Haig is one of my favorite directors,
Yeah.
and I've seen everything he's ever done. Well, I haven't seen his TV show actually. Well, I've seen all his movies,
Yeah.
and I love Weekend so much. And I even like his debut that no one's seen called Greek Pete, which is much more rough around the edges than his other stuff. But I liked it, and then Weekend I just adore, and 45 Years is great. So I was so excited for this, and I went to made sure I got to the premiere because I knew it wasn't going to come out till late this year. I needed to get a chance to see it, and I was actually waiting to go into the premiere, and I was just like standing around minding my own business. And I looked to my left, and I realized that the guy standing next to me that whole time had been Andrew Haig.
No way.
And yeah, and then he was just talking to his friends. Then he walked past me in his coat, brushed my coat, and I was like, I've been touched by filmmaking genius. And then we went in, and I watched it, and I think it to me was less, like you said, it's less immediately brilliant than some of his other films.
Mhm.
It takes a while to kind of get under your skin. Um, and I even found the same thing when I watched it again in February or March.
Mm.
And because what I think it is a really grueling film because it's about 2 hours and you're following this character who you feel so much empathy for because he's just this like poor
Yeah.
vulnerable boy, and Charlie Palmer is so amazing. And a lot of it is just him like really really struggling, and he has a goal of where he's going, but for a lot of the time, you doubt whether he's going to get there, because everything he goes through is so arduous, and it is really, it's kind of a tough watch.
Yeah.
Um, but it's almost like immersive in that way, because you're going through the same thing that the character's going through. There's sort of this point in the middle of the film where it feels like, I just wish that this can get to the end, because you want what is possibly going to be at the end for him, and you want him to get where he wants to go,
Yeah.
and you want it to just kind of rush through that bit. But that is, I mean, he's replicating the experience of the character, and it might not be like pleasurable to you as an audience member, but it does have this massive catharsis at the end. Because I mean, I can't even think of
Yeah.
the final few scenes of the film without crying, because
Right.
it's so powerful, and it's so and I think that's why it kind of grows on you afterwards, because you've been through an experience with a character,
Yeah.
and you feel what he feels, because it's immersive. You've gone through that too. You've gone through how like arduous it is for him, and then you felt like the massive relief at the end, like the massive catharsis, and you really, really do feel it at the end. Um, so yeah, I've actually, like, to give context to what I do at Seventh Row. Sometimes when we really like a film, we do sort of a special issue on it. So we
Uh-huh.
dedicate like a week to articles, and we did one for Lean on Pete, and that meant I got to interview that. I mean, we as a whole interviewed Andrew Haig, we interviewed
Oh my
the
gosh.
editor, the DP, and we interviewed the production designer. And I got to interview the DP and the production designer.
Oh,
So
cool.
I've been like completely like immersed in this film for a bit, and but talking to them really just revealed just how detailed the film is. I mean, so much went into it. It's very subtle. So
Yeah.
there's all these details that you wouldn't really notice, but they've put so much thought and care into it. And Andrew Haig is such a collaborative director. And I mean, he's just amazing. And I love him. And this is,
Yeah.
yeah, fantastic film.
Uh, it sounds, it's such a cliche, but it really did feel like a triumph of the human spirit by the end. You're
Yeah.
just like, he did it.
Yeah.
Yay.
Felt so happy for him.
Yeah. What do you have next?
Well, my next film is also another film that I feel a lot of people won't have heard of, because it is very under the radar too. It was last year's Spanish language submission for the foreign language Oscar,
Uh-huh.
and it's called Summer 1993.
Uh-huh.
And I sort of saw this on a whim, and it wasn't even because anyone had recommended it to me or I'd heard good things. uh, Basically, I saw it at London Film Festival last year, and you get the program and look through it every year when it comes out. And one of the sections I always skip to is they have like a competition for debuts. So they select about 12 debuts, and they're very well curated from sort of the festival program of the last year. So, and that section, like in particular, is one I always love, because um, they've, like I said, they've really well chosen, and you always find these really fascinating, new and exciting films by new directors there. So I went to it, and the picture for this one looked interesting, so I watched it, and it's really fantastic. And I've been trying to get people to watch it, and it's hard to get people to watch films that they haven't heard of, like they haven't heard one thing about. But it does come out, I think, next month or soon, and it's this very sort of quiet and subtle look at how children process grief. So it's set just after this 6-year-old girl's parents have died. You don't see her parents. It starts immediately after, or not immediately, but it starts as she's sort of wandering around her house, and her family is packing up her things so she can go and move in with her aunt and uncle and their about 5-year-old daughter. Um, and it's this really like, a lot of films about children can seem patronizing, or they'll be from the perspective of adults. It's completely from her perspective. It's from the 6-year-old's perspective, and she doesn't talk much, and she's very quiet, and it's a very not at all patronizing look at sort of loneliness in children, and like how they deal with grief, how they think about grief, because she can't really process what death is,
Mm.
but she's having to kind of deal. She's having these emotions to do with the loss of her parents, but she has no idea what they mean or how to process them, and she's not completely aware of the fact that they're not going to come back. And you see her coming to terms with that, and throughout the whole film, it's this very complete and really empathetic and look at sort of the process that a child might go through for that. And yeah, it's really sort of astonishing for a debut. This director called Carla Simon. I'm really excited to see what she does because yeah,
Mm.
it's a very small film and it's a very intimate film, but I I saw it in September and I'm still thinking about it, and it's still like definitely one of my standouts of the year.
That's really cool. I have not seen this one. I actually hadn't heard of it, and it's not streamable yet, so I can watch it today. And but it sounds great. I'm really excited to see it. I'm definitely going to see it when I as soon as I can. My number one indie so far this year is a movie called Leave No Trace, and I have really disliked movies that are like about people that are off the grid. I was not a big fan of Captain Fantastic, and I really hated the Glass Castle. It
Yeah,
was
me
not
too.
for me, not for me. And I really don't like when they paint these people that oftentimes are being terrible people and super abusive and not good. They paint them in these heroic lights just because they're choosing something different. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily good. And anyway, but I thought that this movie was the first one that actually got it right. That he's like, because it's about this father and daughter who are living off the grid. And it's not really because he chose it necessarily. It's just that can't, he can't function. He's certainly not portrayed as a hero, and he's not, but you have great empathy for him, but he's not this is a wounded person who can't function in society. And so that's why he's living this way, because of his PTSD. And his daughter's kind of brought along for the ride and played beautifully by Thomasin McKenzie. She was,
Mackenzie, yeah.
yeah, she was phenomenal as this teen girl who she gets several different opportunities to kind of see what she's missing. I thought that the dialogue felt very true. Deborah Granick, I really liked Winter's Bone, but I think this might even be better. I just thought that their relationship felt really true, and and I don't know, just had so many moments where I was really invested. And at the end, when she makes a decision that I was just like, yeah, that was so brave. Good job. So I loved it. I can't wait to see it again. It was the highlight of Sundance for me. And it comes out at I think in small markets here at the end of
July, yeah.
June yeah.
Oh, June, July, yeah.
Yeah. So people should go out and see it. It was really moving. And I just really liked it. So
Yeah, I mean, I saw this about a week or two ago at the Sundance London,
yeah.
and I do really feel like I want to see it again, and I want to really think about it because it's this very, like I said, there's a lot of these films, very subdued film. It's very observational. It's just about observing these two characters, and it's so like perceptive about them and about their relationship. I mean, it deals with this father-daughter relationship in such a clever way. And I mean, the main thing about it is that Thomasin McKenzie is just such a compelling presence, and
Yeah.
the film really relies on her being like you wanting to watch her and watch her think and watch her experience new things and sort of take in what that means for her and what that means for her relationship with her father. And Ben Foster's really great too. And yeah, I mean, their dynamic it is really compelling, and Deborah Granick manages to make like something so simple as just these two people and the way they interplay really fascinating to watch. The way I like Winter's Bone as well, but I feel like I didn't connect with it as much as I did this film. Like that, this film really, really, I think works on all levels.
You have as your number one so far.
Okay, well, my number one is also a film I saw about a week and a half ago at Sundance London, and it's actually the film that won the Grand Jury Prize at like January Sundance, which is The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which was the film that I was most looking forward to from Sundance London because I really, really loved Desiree Akhavan, who's the director. I really loved her last film, Appropriate Behaviour. But that film is very different from this film because that film is sort of a light sort of comedy about like, you know, like a Greta Gerwig film. Or I don't want to really bring up Woody Allen, but people did bring up Woody Allen, and it's sort of like just really driven by one character who she played. Walking Around the City is really, it's well made, but it's casually made. Whereas this film is a really incredibly scripted, structured, like directed film that is just really, really impressive on another level. And it's set in a gay conversion therapy camp, and the star is Chloe Grace Moretz. And it's sort of just about her going to this place and it being a place that's very, very hostile. And the film is partially about exposing just how horrible those places are, but also about the friendship that brews between her and these two other people in the camp, which is Dasha Lane, who was a breakout from American Honey, and Forrest Goodluck, who you may know as Leonardo DiCaprio's son in The Revenant. And both of them are, everyone in this film is amazing to start with. Jennifer L is the very sinister, but like passive aggressively sinister, like leader of the camp. And the way she really manipulates people is so sinister, and the way she plays it is great. And John Gallagher Jr. is in it. It's got this great cast. And those three central people, I mean, Dasha Lane is always so compelling. Forrest Goodluck is great. The thing about Chloe Grace Moretz is that I've always been sort of on and off about her acting. I think people really, really hate her. And I've always felt kind of protective of her because it must be so hard to be a child star, sort of growing up in the industry and be so scrutinized. And for people people really hate her on a personal level. And even though I never thought she was sort of the greatest actress, I never thought that she was so bad to like inspire such hatred. And I think I'm like really happy that now we have this performance, which is actually genuinely like incredible. What's interesting about it is that it's adapted from this book that I haven't read but I've heard about, and it's apparently very good. And the book is set over, I think, a decade, and it's very long. It's about 400, 500 pages, and it's set over this long, expansive time. And the film is set over what seemed like a couple of weeks, and it's 90 minutes long. So it's a very, very radical adaptation. And what I heard out of Sundance was that most people who hadn't read the book really loved it, and a lot of people who had were disappointed with it. So if you if you like the book, then try to treat this as a completely separate object. I think it's doing different things. From what I gather about the book, is it's following this character's sort of coming of age arc over a long period of time and seeing her kind of grow and develop. And what this film is doing is very different. It's taking this very specific point in her life and sort of documenting the small details of this turning point in her life where she meets this group of friends and she starts to kind of turn a corner in her life from this state where she's kind of stagnant and unable to kind of find her identity. And then by finding this group of friends, it's in a very, very dark place, still very uplifting, because it's about finding a small group of people that help you get through that incredibly dark place. Mm-hmm. So it's set in the most extreme circumstances, but the film is, it's a film that because of its looking at its very small part of her life, this very short part of her life, and what happens within it. It ended quite abruptly, and you really love the characters, you really fall in love with them. Really, it leaves you wanting more. I think it does leave at the right place, but it is a very concise film. It does what it needs to do, and it gets out of there, and it. Yeah, I really loved it. It's going to be one of my favorites of the year.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's out in
I
August.
I remember seeing it at Sundance, but it just didn't work into my schedule. I remember seeing it advertised at Sundance, but it didn't work in my schedule. I didn't realize that she was so unpopular. I had no idea. uh,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that many movies with her. The Fifth Wave was not good, but I think that we can excuse most of these Hollywood starlets for being in some bad YA movies.
Yeah,
it
they've all
took
done it.
I mean, it took down Kristen Stewart and Chloe Grace
Yeah.
Moretz and Shailene Woodley. Like few came out unscathed.
Yeah.
I like Hugo very much,
Yeah. She's really good
and
in that.
yeah, and she's in 500 Days of Summer, which I love, and she's also in Bolt, which the Disney film, which I love.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that she was so hated. But yeah, this sounds really good. It sounds really true, and sometimes movies that are like this can get a little message heavy, and it comes from a good place, but it can just get a little much. But this sounds like it does good character work and
Mm.
good. So I'll definitely have it on my to watch list for sure. So great. Well, I think these are some pretty good films that people should check out. Some pretty good recommendations, and some good variety. And we'd love to know from our listeners. You can talk to us on Twitter or in the comment section, whatever. Let us know what indies you've seen this year that you've liked. And if you've seen any of these, or if you do see them, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your perspective. And thanks so much for coming on and doing this. This was really fun. And hopefully we get in.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I hope we get to do it again. So where can people find you
Yeah.
on social media or your publication you write for?
Well, on Twitter you can find me at Orla Mango, and you can find my writing mostly at Seventh Row.
Seventh Row,
So
great.
yeah, go check that out.
Okay, I will have links to all that in the description section. You definitely want to check out. Definitely want to follow Orla in her writing, and you can find me at Rachel's Reviews on iTunes and on YouTube, and at Smiling LDS Girl on social media. I'd love to have you follow me, and let's talk movies. It'll be really fun. And so thanks again. I really appreciate it, and yeah, and we will talk again soon.
Bye.
Bye.